22 minutes past 2 this afternoon, and yes, joining me this afternoon for the afternoon groove, we have Professor Dr. Peter Baofu, and he is an American visionary and author. Could you, talk about a little bit about yourself?
I'm an American visionary and author of 177 books in all fields of knowledge: the social sciences, the formal sciences, the natural sciences, and the humanities. And I have also proposed more than 144 different new theories and visions of the human future in relation to the mind, culture, society, and nature. And I have been in more than 125 different countries around the world, and for my global tour, I do that in order to engage in an ethnographic research of humanity. It will not be focusing on one culture, one people, one ethnic group, and all that. It will be on all of them. So my vision is very global, is futuristic, and it tries to understand the future of the entire planet Earth. And so this is a good summary of who I am as a person.
The political system of Vanuatu. What do you think about the political system in Vanuatu?
Well, as an outsider, I'm not an insider, so my remark would be very neutral. I don't favor any specific group or political party, but based on my observation, I think that since 1980, for example, in the last 40 years or so, Vanuatu has undergone quite a number of different governments, and that is a sign of political instability. I'm not saying that that's good or that's bad. I think that it can go either way. It depends on how you look into the situation. But I do think that when you have two unstable political cycle, that is very difficult for a government to achieve something long term. Because if you want to do something long term, an unstable government is not very effective to implement whatever you want to do. After a few months or a few years, then you have another one, and then the new one come in, you have some other agenda, some other policy, and when you implement them, and then after a few months, a few years, and then you have to have another one again. So that is not very good in implement some of whatever the national goals of the government is. So that is a weakness in a way, but on the other hand, there's also some good thing about that, because a very stable government is not also very good, because it can be very conservative, it can be very unchanging to improve the situation, because the international environment is changing all the time. So when a government is too stable, too settled, it becomes like a frozen political entity. It's not doing much. So either way that you go, it can be good and bad, so it depends on the situation at this time.
So very interesting to see how well you know our history in Vanuatu. Because you have mentioned yesterday when we were having a little bit of chat about ourselves, getting to know you, you do have you can see the future, or you can tell the future or how it goes and things like that. So looking at Vanuatu, you were talking about all this, colonial linking to Vanuatu with the British, French, and now it's going to be the US and China. The Cold War coming up, you've predicted for a few years ago, but unfortunately nobody, taken into consideration that it is going to come true. But with all this, problems and struggles and difficulties in the countries, what is the solution that you can propose to us, so that we will think in a long term that okay, right, if we want our country to go this way, we have to think of a solution to do like this. So what are the solutions that you can give us this very afternoon?
I think the solution, there are four major considerations: short-term, long-term, domestic, and international. So you have to consider all of them, otherwise it would not be very complete. I'm not sure if we have time to talk about all of them, but I have written many books about all of this anyway. So let me give you some examples about each of the four. Let me talk about the domestic first. and then the international, and then the short term and the long term.
Now we're going to be talking about the long term. What are the long term solutions that we should be having to make Vanuatu a better country for new Vanuatu's?
Well, the long-term solution is just like the word long-term. It's not for now. It's not for the next 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years. Long-term means it takes several decades or even centuries. But you need to have a long-term vision, and that's why I'm a visionary, because I always think about the long term, not just about the short term. Now, in case of Vanuatu, given what I just said about the domestic solution, the international solution, and the short-term solution. Now let's talk about the long-term solution. The long-term solution is to more or less doing what I have said so far, but look a bit further down the road, not just that in the next 5 years or 5 months or something like that. I think that Vanuatu has to confront 2 major factors. One is what is needed is a national unity in Vanuatu, a national ideology, a kind of national political culture which can unify the country. Right now you don't have it. People talk about it, politicians talk about it, but it's just for their own political gain. What they are doing is not for the country, for themselves, for their own group. So in a way, the political instability is a reflection of the corruption inside the system. And that corruption has to be eliminated, even though corruption, as I said before, is not necessarily bad, on the other hand, because it can benefit certain groups too. But I'm saying that if you can do it in the right way, the benefit will be much more than the cost. One way that I'm thinking is that in the case of Vanuatu, you need to focus on a political culture, a political ideology, which I think is now available. You can create a new political ideology such that you will say something like this, that you will unify the country such that you are not dependent on any major country outside. Right now, economically, in many ways, Australia is still dependent on Australia and New Zealand, for example, and also former colonial powers like the UK and France, and now also the US. But now you have the opportunity. Now you have China coming in. I think that that is a good thing in the sense that now you have you are now have that availability of a political ideology which is to unify the country and say we are free in the sense that we are no longer dependent on anyone, and we do not want to dependent on anyone and controlled and dominated by anyone. Now that ideology in a way is not new, because Vanuatu also has a long history on non-alignment in foreign affairs. So it's not like inconsistent with what you had before, but you need to fine-tune that message in face of the new situation, which is changing internationally. So you need to talk about, let's say, the Cold War now, the Second Cold War, and also the rivalries between the major powers, and also the former major powers which have controlled you and dominated you. You need to do something to get out of that dependency. So now, to work on that, you have to unify your own people. Because if you are divided, how can you unify? Because outside powers, they will take advantage of you if you are divided. If your people are not divided, they will come in and they will support the opposition to oppose any government which try to do otherwise. Conversely, if the government try to do something and the opposition does not accept, and they will support the government. So they can play with you in different way. So you need to unify in the sense that there is a national ideology and political culture which say we, the people in Vanuatu, we can do something to get rid of that dependency by being open to all, but not subject to any alignment and any subjugation and domination. And that had been said many times before in words only, but not in achievement. Economically, by the way, now you are still dependent on this power that I just mentioned. So this is a good opportunity for you, but that's long term again. I don't expect that you are going to achieve any of this in the next 5 years or 10 years. That's long term. But also long term that you also have to understand the international development, and I have proposed more than 145 different new visions and theories about the human future. 2 of them, for example, is about post-democracy and post-capitalism, in which I argue that capitalism, as we understand that as an economic system, will not last anymore. It will be replaced by a new economic system, which I call post-capitalism, which can provide a better benefit to the economic environment of the human future. The same about democracy. Contrary to what you think, democracy will not last as a political system because it has become too dysfunctional. Democracy becoming more and more undesirable in the new economic and political and social situation that we are facing on Earth. And I propose that there would be a new political system I call the post-democracy. So this gives some long-term solution that these 2 systems that I just proposed can also help Vanuatu to achieve the national agenda that I just mentioned. So that is a comprehensive understanding about the long term, not just domestic, but also international, not just short term, but also long term. Now that's easy to say, but it's not easy to do. My final words to elaborate further than that is to tell you, for example, that look at the thing that you are doing now. You are speaking English to me.
Yes,
How come you are not speaking your own language? Now, many of the people on Sunday, they go to church.
Yes.
As Christian religion. How come you don't have your own religion? And Jesus Christ is a white man. How come your God is a white man, not your own man, for example? Now, how come you send so many laborers to Australia or New Zealand, wherever, to work on the farmland? How come you don't have the economy to support your own people over here? And many of them go there and come back here year in, year out. You are still poor. And your country, your economy is still 90%, 95, 96, whatever percent working in agriculture. How come you cannot progress further than that? How many years do you want to continue like this? By the way, you depend on tourism, that is fine. How many years can you continue to depend on that, given the fact that you have been so poor and you continue to be so poor by comparison with other countries? I just give you some example, for example, and the political instability. How many more years do you want to wait until something fundamentally will be changed? Forget about the politicians. They run for office. That's called liberal democracy. They are supposed to go there and say whatever you like to hear. At the end of the day, I tell you now, nothing is going to be done on any of this. So there must be a major action for someone in Vanuatu. I'm sure that some of these people will come up, some great historical shaker from Vanuatu. Some of them will come and say, it's time for us to unify. It's time for us to have a new national vision to do all of this, to transform Vanuatu in a different place on earth, which has never been imagined before. Can you do that? Well, that's my challenge to you. And I want to see how you are going to achieve that in the next 500 years or 500 or 50 years or whatever that might be. Right. That's my last word to you.
Yes, apart from all the things that we have mentioned, we've been talking about the long term previously on when you mentioned, looking at the problems that are with the long term. How do you see Vanuatu in the future to giving us a better Vanuatu within the long-term situations that we're having right now?
If you continue to do what you have been doing, and I can tell you now, Vanuatu will continue to be what you have now. But if you are trying to do something that I have proposed, short-term, long-term, domestic, international, the 4 solutions that I offer you, or the 4 major factors, then I think that you will be able to get rid of many of the problems that you are facing, like political instability, poverty, and dependency internationally. I think that is what I'm saying is in many ways quite compatible with the dreams and visions that you have too, given the history that you have. But that vision is just a vision. You need to work hard to implement that. So I hope that all this will happen. But if you ask me realistically, I think that not much. If you continue to get stuck in what you have been doing, then I don't think that much is going to be changed. If you continue to do what you are doing, even 50 years from now, Vanuatu will still be one of the places which do not matter too much on Earth, unfortunately. But you need to face the reality first before you change, and then you see the vision, and then you implement that. So that's my answer to your long question.
Well, thank you very much, Professor, and also Dr. Peter Baofu, for taking the time to come to the studio and letting me know what you do and what you have done, you know, in a long-term run for your global trip. Thank you very much. It's my privilege to have known you, and it's been very interesting how our talks have been, and how your ideas, how you predict your visions, your visionary in different globally, politically wise, social wise, or anything wise that you have mentioned to me for this very afternoon. I am so pleased to have met you. Thanks a lot for coming in. Hopefully, if you do come again, I'll be here in the studio, and anytime you want to come and have a pop along and say, "Hi Jade, I'm here," you are very most welcome to come back to the studio, and we'll have another segment on what other things that we can talk about for the future. So thank you very much. I am very, very pleased to have you in the studio.
And thank you, Jay, for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Well,